Hey guys, welcome back to another crazy video. What I'm doing right here right now, I got some sapple that I drove 3 hours to pick up. I bought 2 long lengths of it, and I'm cutting off some 8-inch squares out of it that I am going to be gluing together and segmented together so that I can make my next project. I should say 2 of my next project. So I get out the Titebond 3, and I'm splattering it on both sides. I'm making sure that I get a really good bond with this and it sits nice and even. I did a lot of sanding on these pieces before I even started putting the glue on. I made sure everything was nice and smooth before I even put it on. So I'm doing this not once but twice. I've got 5 pieces each that I'm doing, and like I said, I'm really splattering the Titebond to it, and I'm going to clamp it up. I've never worked with the sapple before, but it has got a really nice grain to it. But again, I'll be turning the end grain of it once I get it onto the lathe. So now I'm going to clamp it up, and I'm going to clamp it up good and tight. And I'm going to be leaving it for a good 4 days. I like to make sure that every bit of the glue throughout all the pieces that is good, hard, and dry. The last thing I need is to put it on the lathe and something come flying off of it because there wasn't enough glue onto it and it wasn't hardened enough. So and I'm just cutting the corners off just to give me that little tiny head start when I do put it on the lathe. And there's not so much chipping on the corners when I start turning it. So there's the first one. Now I elected to go with the plate because this does have a little bit of weight to it, and I want to make sure that it's on the lathe good and strong. Plus I'm going to be using the tailstock as well. And now the fun begins. Trimming it up as much as I can to get it as round. As soon as I do get it round, I'm going to be making sure that it's just so that there's no flat sides onto it, because I need this whole thing to be as big as the size as I can get it. This is one of the projects that I do really enjoy making too. Not only do I love making barrels, as you've probably seen in some of my past videos, but also a lamp out of a barrel. Now here I skipped ahead. I'm in the middle of doing the shaping onto it. I'm just lightly grazing it from the center down and back again, just getting that barrel shape to it. I don't want to go too extreme or take too much off. So I'm just making light cuts and just making sure that I get that nice barrel shape to it. I think the very first project that I ever turned was a barrel shot glass a few years back. I'm just making sure that it's getting nice and smooth. I don't want any bumps into it. So now I'm starting with a coarse grit because again this is end grain and I want to make sure that I get it smoothened out as much as I can. So I'm starting with a 40 grit, then I'll work up to a 60 and I go right up to a 600 grit. So the sanding is done and now I've got my lines all marked out. In the second barrel I'll show you how I end up doing that. Now this, I've got a small detail skew and all I'm doing is using the point to make little grooves where my lines are, and now I'm just using the rabbit wire to burn the lines into it. Now it doesn't look like I'm holding it on there for very long, but the video is speeded up 4 times, so they're on there for a good 20 seconds or more, 25 seconds. I make sure that the lines are in there real good, and then I'll continue my sanding from 100 grit on up. And there it's starting to come out. You can see a little bit of the grain to it. Using antique oil to get that grain to pop out a little bit better. Get that dullness out of it. Nice shine to it. There's some areas I had to do by hand, but it comes out really nice. You can see how that end grain changes color as you're turning it. So now I'm completely out of shellac, because you can't get any at the hardware stores right now. I don't really know what the story is on that. So I'm going with a wipe-on poly, and I am just using a brush to lightly put it on. And I'll do, I think, 2 or 3 coats of it. I could get a nice glossy, nice shine to it. Now I'll usually come back 2 or 3 hours later after it's nice and dry. I'll sand with 220 grit and then I'll apply another coat. And like I said, I'll do that 2 to 3 times. After I took it off the lathe, I did do the bottom and the top, which is a lot easier to do when it's off the lathe. So now here's number 2. Now most everything I did on this here, I did on number 2. This one here, I don't know why, it did have a little more of a vibration to it on the tailstock, but that did come out after getting it round. I won't show you everything on this one because I don't want to bore everybody, but I will show you some of the detail. Now here I am at the starting of getting it nice and round, and I'm getting ready to get the shaping done onto it. Now here's how I do my lines. I'm marking it out. It's the same lines that I put on the first one. I had it marked on the tape measure, And I am not a lefty when it comes to holding a pencil or a pen, so this is one of my favorite parts of doing a barrel, is getting the lines on there, getting a nice look to it so that it does look like the barrel. I've already got the lines all burnt in there. I've got the antique oil out. I'm getting that oil on there to get that grain popping out some. Now here everything's pretty much done except for putting the hardware on. Now the reason why I left a hole down through the middle, which I did drill down through, and I'm using the pencil to poke it back up through, and it makes it a lot easier getting the cord up to come up through. You can see that grain on the top of it showing up real nice. Here I didn't quite get that lock nut on there. I didn't screw it in there as far as I was supposed to, and of course I didn't get this screwed in there all the way, so I had to pull it back out and screw that lock nut on there a little bit farther. I had the hole drilled to the size of the hardware so that the hardware was screwed down into it. Get a nice tight fit. Now this is actually easy to do, but of course me, I'm all thumbs, so the other wire I did have a little troubles with getting it on. It just didn't want to stay on there very good. You can see it's trying to come off, so okay, I'll take it off, I'll switch it over on the other side. And of course my fingers are hard to work with, small things like this. So yay, I finally get it on there, really good. And once I get this one all into place, you'll see me finishing up the second one. So I'll leave it at that, and I thank you all for watching. Everybody have a good day, and I will see you soon.